Admiral Lee Tejo stood on the bridge of the UES Incheon's Pride, watching the stars through the massive window. He had been patrolling the outer colonies for 3 months now. The job was usually boring. Pirates sometimes caused trouble, but real threats were rare. Humanity had been at peace for over 200 years. Admiral, called Park So-min from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, young but very good at her job. "I'm getting something strange." Lee walked over to her console. The screen showed normal space traffic patterns, but one thing looked wrong. "What am I looking at?" "New Busan colony, sir. They stopped talking 12 hours ago." Complete radio silence, Lee frowned. New Busan was one of the biggest human colonies outside Earth's solar system. Over 2 million people lived there. They sent regular reports every 6 hours like clockwork. The colony had farms, factories, and even a small spaceport. It was not the kind of place that just went quiet. "Equipment failure?" Lee asked. So-min shook her head. "I tried all frequencies. Emergency channels, civilian bands, even the old military backup systems, nothing. It's like the whole planet just stopped existing." Lee felt cold fingers run down his spine. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. "Send a message to Captain Kim Do-hyun on the Seoul Dawn. Tell him to take his ship and investigate. Full speed." The Seoul Dawn was a destroyer, fast and well-armed. Captain Kim was one of Lee's best officers. If anyone could figure out what happened, it was him. 3 days later, Kim's voice crackled through the communication system. Lee could hear fear in it, which scared him more than anything else. Kim was not the type of man who got frightened easily. "Admiral, you need to see this for yourself," Kim said. "I'm sending you the data now, but..." "Sir, New Busan is gone." "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "I mean gone, sir. The planet is still here, but everything else is just gone." Lee stared at the data streaming onto his screen. The readings made no sense. New Busan's surface temperature was normal. The atmosphere was still there. But every single sign of human life had disappeared. No cities, no farms, no people, nothing. "I'm coming down there," Lee said. "Hold position until I arrive." The trip to New Busan took 2 days. Lee brought Dr. Choi Min-ji, the fleet's best scientist who studied alien artifacts. If this was some kind of attack, she might be able to figure out who did it. When they reached New Busan, Lee could not believe what he saw. The planet looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. But as they got closer, he realized something was terribly wrong. Where New Seoul, the capital city, should have been, there was only smooth glass. Not broken glass like after an explosion. Perfect, clean glass that reflected sunlight like a mirror. The same thing had happened to every city, every town, every human settlement on the planet. "Take us down," Lee ordered. They landed near where New Seoul used to be. Lee, Dr. Choi, and a security team put on their suits and stepped outside. The ground under their feet was solid glass, perfectly smooth. Lee knelt down and touched it. It was warm, but not hot. "This is impossible," Dr. Choi whispered through the radio. "It's like someone took every building, every person, every trace that humans ever lived here and just erased them. Then they turned the ground into glass." The security team spread out, looking for any clue about what happened. They found nothing. No bodies, no wreckage, no signs of fighting. Even the trees and grass were gone, replaced by the same smooth glass surface. Dr. Choi took samples with her equipment. "Admiral, I'm detecting traces of energy I've never seen before. Whatever did this used technology far beyond anything we have." Lee felt sick. 2 million people had lived on this planet just days ago. Families with children, workers, teachers, doctors, all gone without a trace. No one had even sent a distress signal. They spent 6 hours searching the planet. Every human settlement had been erased the same way. But strangely, the natural areas that humans had not touched were perfectly normal. Animals still lived in the forests. Fish swam in the oceans. Only human-made things and humans themselves had been removed. Back on his ship, Lee sat in his cabin and stared at the report he had to write. How do you explain that an entire colony had been erased from existence? Who would believe it? His communication system beeped. Director Yoon Jae-wook from the Colonial Defense Ministry on Earth wanted to talk. "Admiral Lee, I just read your preliminary report. Please tell me this is some kind of mistake." "I wish it was, sir. New Busan is gone. Not destroyed. Erased. Someone or something removed every trace of human presence and turned the ground to glass." There was a long silence. Finally, Yoon spoke again. "Come back to Earth immediately. Bring all your data and Dr. Choi. This goes straight to the President." The trip back to Earth took a week. During that time, news of New Busan spread throughout human space. People were scared and angry. Some demanded answers, others wanted revenge. But revenge against whom? Lee found himself standing in the president's office in Geneva. President Han Soo-jin was a small woman, but she had eyes like steel. She had led humanity for 8 years through peace and prosperity. Now she faced something no human leader had ever dealt with. Admiral, I've read your report 3 times. I've looked at all the data. I still can't believe it. Neither can I, Madam President, but it's real. President Han walked to the window that looked out over Lake Geneva. For 300 years, humans have spread across the galaxy. We've met other species, some friendly, some not, but no one has ever done anything like this. She turned back to Lee. 2.3 million people gone, not killed in battle, not taken prisoner, erased like they never existed. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Choi, in your opinion, could humans have defended against this attack? Dr. Choi shook her head. Not with our current technology. Whoever did this can manipulate matter at the atomic level. They can erase anything they want. President Han was quiet for a long moment. Then she pressed a button on her desk. Call an emergency meeting of the Earth Council. All members. Now. 6 hours later, Lee stood in the Great Council chamber where representatives from every human world gathered. The room was full of angry voices and frightened faces. President Han walked to the center podium. Citizens of humanity, she began. Today we learned that one of our colonies, New Busan, has been completely erased by an unknown enemy. Over 2 million of our people are gone. The room exploded in shouts and questions. President Han waited for quiet. We don't know who did this. We don't know why. But we know one thing. Someone out there thinks they can erase humans from existence without consequences. She paused and looked around the room. They're wrong. If they can erase us, they clearly don't understand what humanity does when cornered. We don't just mourn our dead, we make sure it never happens again. The council chamber erupted in agreement. Lee watched President Han's face and saw something that made him both proud and afraid. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what happened when you hurt their children. Lieutenant Colonel Bae Young-soo had not slept in 3 days. His office in the intelligence division was covered with star maps, energy readings, and data files. Empty coffee cups sat on every surface. His team worked around the clock trying to figure out who had erased New Busan. Sir, I think I found something, called Sergeant Lee from across the room. Bae hurried over to Lee's computer. On the screen was a star map showing energy signatures from the past year. Most were normal. Ships moving between systems, solar flares, the usual background noise of space. But 3 dots glowed red. What am I looking at? Energy signatures that match what Dr. Choi found on New Busan. 3 other systems in the past 8 months. All in empty space, but all showing the same type of energy reading. Bae felt his stomach drop. Empty space that used to have what in it? Lee pulled up older star maps. Kepler 438 had a small research station. 50 scientists studying the local star. Wolf 1061 had a mining operation. About 200 workers. And here, he pointed to the 3rd location. HD 4307 had a listening post, military, 30 people. They're all gone? Yes, sir. We thought the research station was lost in an equipment accident. The mining operation reported equipment failure before going silent. The listening post was supposed to be on a communication blackout for security reasons. Bae stared at the map. Someone had been testing their erasing technology on small human settlements before moving to New Busan. They had been planning this for months. Send this to Fleet Admiral Kang immediately, and get me everything we have on any other missing stations or ships. While Bae's team worked to find the enemy, Fleet Admiral Kang Hye-jin was turning Earth's solar system into the biggest military factory in human history. She stood in the command center above Luna, watching thousands of ships being built in the orbital shipyards. Admiral, the Mars shipyards report they can increase production by 40% if we give them more raw materials, reported Captain Seo from the logistics division. Do it. Strip the asteroid belt if you have to. I want every piece of metal turned into warships. Earth had been at peace for so long that most people forgot how good humans were at building things for war. The same factories that made transport ships could make destroyers. The same workers who built space stations could build battleships. And they could do it fast. President Han had given Kang unlimited authority to prepare for war. Every shipyard in human space was working at maximum speed. Military factories that had been shut down for decades were reopened. Retired workers came back to build weapons they hoped they would never need to use. Dr. Lim Sang-min worked in a laboratory deep under the Swiss mountains. His job was to figure out how to defend against the erasing technology. Around him, the best scientists from every human world worked on the same problem. The energy readings suggest they can break down matter at the quantum level, Dr. Lim explained to his team. They're not just destroying things. They're making them stop existing. How do we defend against that? Asked Dr. Park from the Seoul Institute. By making sure the quantum structure of our ships can't be broken down. I'm working on a shield system that might work. It's based on research we did 50 years ago into quantum archaeology. Dr. Lim had always been interested in reading the memory of space itself. Every place in the universe kept a record of what had happened there, written in quantum fields that most people could not detect. If they could read that memory, they might be able to understand how the erasing worked. While Earth prepared for war, the enemy finally made contact. The message came through quantum transmission, reaching every human world at the same time. President Han was in a meeting with the Earth Council when the communication systems throughout the building began broadcasting the same signal. The voice that spoke was cold and mechanical, but it spoke perfect human language. We are the Vextar Dominion. We have observed your species for some time. You spread too quickly. You take too much. You are what we call a viral species. The council chamber was completely silent. Everyone stared at the speakers as the alien voice continued. We removed your settlement called New Busan as a demonstration. You have 30 of your standard days to evacuate 12 more of your colonies. We will provide a list. If you do not evacuate, we will cleanse those worlds as we cleansed New Busan. President Han stood up. This is President Han Soo-jin of Earth. We demand to know why you attacked our people. We do not negotiate with viral species. We cleanse them. You have 30 days, the signal ended. The council chamber erupted in angry shouts. Some representatives demanded immediate attack. Others called for evacuation. A few suggested trying to negotiate. President Han slammed her hand on the podium. Quiet! When the room was silent again, she continued. Ambassador Shin Hae-young, try to establish diplomatic contact with these Vextar. Find out what they want and if there's any way to avoid more deaths. Yes, Madam President. Admiral Kang, how many ships can you have ready in 30 days? Kang consulted her tablet. 50,000, ma'am, with more coming online every day after that. Make it happen. Ambassador Shin worked for 2 weeks trying to reach the Vextar through diplomatic channels. When she finally made contact, what she learned made everyone's blood run cold. They've done this before, she reported to the emergency council session. 47 species across the galaxy. They call it cleansing. They think some species spread too fast and take up too much space. What happened to those other species? Asked President Han, gone, completely erased. The Vextar have been doing this for over 1,000 years. They think it's their job to keep the galaxy clean. Dr. Choi raised her hand. Did any of those species fight back? Some tried. But the Vextar say their cleansing technology has never failed. They've never met a species they couldn't erase. President Han was quiet for a long moment. They've never met humans. Admiral Park Jin-woo stood on the bridge of the battleship Sejong the Great, flagship of the first human response fleet. Around him, 50,000 warships prepared to leave Earth's solar system. It was the largest military force humans had ever assembled. All ships report ready, sir, his communications officer announced. Park looked out at the massive fleet. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and support vessels stretched as far as he could see. Each one was built in the past month by workers who knew their families might be next on the Vextar list. Send a message to all ships, Park ordered. Today we go to meet an enemy that thinks humans can be erased. They think we're just another species they can remove from the galaxy. They're about to learn they made a mistake. He turned to his navigation officer. Set course for the Vextar border. Maximum speed. Behind them, Earth's shipyards continued working. Kang had been conservative in her estimate. By the time Park's fleet reached enemy space, another 100,000 ships would be ready to follow. And more after that. The Vextar had erased 47 species. They thought humans would be number 48. They were wrong. In the deep space between stars, sensors that had watched the galaxy for 1,000 years detected something new. The energy signatures of 50,000 human warships moving at high speed toward Vextar space. For the first time in their long history, The Vextar felt something they did not understand. The humans were not running away. They were not trying to hide. They were coming to fight. Prime Erasure Velkar reviewed the sensor data in his command ship. His species had cleansed 47 others. Some had begged. Some had tried to fight with primitive weapons. Some had simply waited to die. None had ever responded with 50,000 warships. Continue monitoring, he ordered his subordinates. Prepare cleansing procedures for the designated human worlds. This changes nothing. But deep in his ancient mind, Velkar felt the first stirring of something the Vextar had forgotten they could feel. Doubt. Captain Osung-hwan gripped the arms of his command chair as the Gwangju Vengeance dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Around him, the bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet focus. They all knew they were flying into the first battle between humans and the Vextar. Enemy ships detected, announced Lieutenant Kim at the sensor station. 12 vessels, unknown design. They're moving to intercept us. Oh studied the tactical display. The Vextar ships looked like nothing humans had ever built. They were smooth and dark with no visible weapons or engines. They moved through space like living things. All ships, this is Captain O. Remember, we're here to test our new defenses. Dr. Lim's quantum shields are untested in combat. Stay close and follow my lead. The Gwangju Vengeance was an experimental ship, the first human vessel equipped with quantum shielding. Behind O's ship, 9 other destroyers waited for his orders. They were outnumbered, but they carried something the Vextar had never faced before. Sir, the enemy ships are powering weapons, reported the tactical officer. Activate quantum shields. All power to defensive systems. Around the human ship, space itself began to shimmer. Dr. Lim's shields worked by making the ship's quantum structure too complex to erase. It was like trying to untie a knot with a million pieces. The Vextar opened fire. O had seen the recordings from New Busan. He knew what Vextar weapons could do. Matter simply stopped existing where their beams touched. But when the alien weapons hit his ship, something different happened. The hull sparked and glowed, but it did not disappear. Shields holding, shouted the engineering officer. Hull damage is minimal. O allowed himself a small smile. Return fire. All weapons. The human ships fired back with plasma cannons and missile launchers. The Vextar had never faced weapons like these before. Their own defenses were designed to stop erasing beams. Not explosive warheads. 2 Vextar ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Sir, I'm reading confusion in their formation, reported the tactical officer. They're not used to targets that shoot back. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, 7 Vextar ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 2 destroyers, but the others survived with only minor damage. Commander Ryu Minho studied the battle data as his ship limped back to human space. His job was to analyze Vextar tactics and find their weaknesses. What he discovered was shocking. They don't know how to fight, he told Admiral Park during the debrief. For 1,000 years, they've only faced enemies they could erase instantly. They've never had to develop real combat tactics. What do you mean? They come in, point their erasing weapons at something, and it disappears. That's not fighting. That's just deletion. But when their weapons don't work, they don't know what to do. Back on Earth, General Nam Ki-young watched the production reports with satisfaction. Phase 2 of the shipbuilding program was ahead of schedule. 200,000 new warships would be ready within 6 weeks. But his satisfaction turned to anger when the next Vextar message arrived. The alien transmission showed views of New Jeju, a farming world where 800,000 humans grew food for the outer colonies. The images were taken from orbit, showing peaceful cities and vast green fields. This world will be cleansed in 72 hours, the Vextar announced. You have failed to evacuate the designated colonies. This is your second demonstration. President Han tried to contact the Vextar directly. We are willing to negotiate. Tell us what you want. There has to be a way to avoid more killing. The response was immediate and cold. Viral species cannot be negotiated with. They can only be cleansed. You have 70 hours. Dr. Park Sun-hee sat in the deep space monitoring station at the edge of human territory. Her job was to watch for threats from outside human space. She had been tracking Vextar ship movements for weeks. Ma'am, I'm detecting a large Vextar fleet approaching New Jeju, reported her assistant. How large? 50 ships. They're not trying to hide. It's like they want us to watch. Dr. Park activated every sensor array in the system. If the Vextar were going to erase another human world, she would record every second of it. The attack began exactly 72 hours after the warning. Dr. Park watched in horror as the Vextar ships took positions around New Jeju. They worked methodically, like farmers harvesting crops. First, they erased the orbital stations and defense platforms. Then they moved to the planet's surface. The process was terrifying in its efficiency. City after city simply disappeared, replaced by smooth glass. The Vextar worked from north to south, erasing every sign of human presence. Families trying to evacuate were caught in the open. Children playing in parks. Farmers working in fields. All gone in seconds. But this time Dr. Park captured everything. Every energy reading. Every quantum signature. Every moment of the 6-hour process that turned a living world into a monument of glass. When it was over, 800,000 humans were dead. New Jeju looked exactly like New Busan, beautiful from space but sterile as a surgical instrument. The footage reached Earth 12 hours later. President Han watched it alone in her office, tears streaming down her face. She had seen war before, but nothing like this. The Vextar had not just killed humans. They had erased them so completely that no trace remained. The news spread across human space like wildfire. On every world, in every city, humans watched their brothers and sisters disappear as if they had never existed. The anger was unlike anything in human history. Admiral Kang received 10 million volunteer applications in the first day after the new Jeju footage was released. Civilians wanted to join the military. Factory workers wanted to build more ships. Even children sent messages asking how they could help fight the Vextar. "Ma'am, we've received contact from several alien species," reported her communications officer. "What kind of contact?" "Survivors. Species that the Vextar tried to cleanse, but some escaped. They want to help us." Sino diplomat Lee Dong-min worked around the clock to coordinate with these new allies. The largest group called themselves the Kethari Remnant. 200 years ago, the Vextar had erased their homeworld and 12 colonies. Only a few thousand Kethari survived in hidden ships. "Your people fight back," their leader told Lee through a translation device. "In 800 years, no species has ever fought the erasers. They always run or surrender." "Humans don't surrender," Lee replied, "and we don't forget." The Kethari shared their intelligence about Vextar technology and tactics. Other survivor species did the same. For the first time, someone was gathering detailed information about how the Vextar operated. Dr. Lim used this information to improve his quantum shields. "I think I can make them more efficient," he told Admiral Kang, "and maybe develop offensive applications." Offensive applications? Ways to disrupt their erasing technology. If we can stop them from erasing things, they lose their main advantage. In the Vextar command ship, Prime Erasure, Velkar studied the reports from the battle at Kepler 442. His subordinates were confused and worried. "The humans have found a way to resist cleansing," reported his tactical officer. 7 of our ships were destroyed. Impossible. Cleansing technology has never failed. The evidence is clear, Prime Erasure. The human ships did not dissolve when hit by our weapons. Instead, they fired back with primitive but effective weapons. Velkar felt something he had not experienced in centuries of cleansing operations. Uncertainty. The humans were not behaving like other viral species. They should have submitted after the second demonstration. Instead, their response was growing larger. "How many human ships are now approaching our territory?" Current estimates suggest over 300,000, with more being constructed. 300,000. In all of Vextar history, they had never faced more than a few hundred ships at once. Most species they cleansed had smaller fleets than a single human star system. "Prepare the full might of the Dominion," Velkar ordered. "If the humans will not accept cleansing peacefully, we will cleanse them by force." But as he gave the order, Velkar felt a cold touch in his ancient mind. The humans had surprised them once. What if they could do it again? On Earth, President Han stood before the assembled representatives of humanity. Her voice carried across every human world as she made her declaration. "The Vextar think they can erase us piece by piece. They think if they kill enough of our people, the rest will surrender. They don't understand that every world they erase, every family they destroy only makes us stronger." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "New Busan, New Jeju. Over 3 million of our people erased from existence. The Vextar want to know what humanity does when cornered." Her voice grew hard as steel. "They're about to find out." Admiral Yang He-jin stood in the command center of the massive battleship Seoul's Fury, watching her tactical display with grim satisfaction. Around her flagship, 250,000 human warships moved in perfect formation. The largest military force in human history was about to strike at 17 Vextar worlds at the same time. All fleet commanders report ready, announced her communications. Officer Yang had spent 6 weeks planning this operation. The Vextar expected humans to attack one world at a time like other species had done. Instead, Yang would hit everything at once. The aliens could not erase what they could not catch. Execute Operation Irontide, she ordered. Across 17 different star systems, human fleets dropped out of faster-than-light travel simultaneously. The Vextar had never faced anything like it. Their forces were spread thin, designed to cleanse worlds one at a time, not fight massive battles across multiple systems. In the Kepler-296 system, Captain Cho Min-jun led 15,000 ships against a Vextar supply depot. The aliens had built their facility inside a hollow asteroid, thinking it was perfectly hidden. Target the main structure, Cho ordered. Dr. Lim says their erasing technology needs those power generators to work. The human ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, and kinetic weapons that fired chunks of metal at incredible speeds. The Vextar had designed their defenses to stop erasing beams, not physical projectiles. The asteroid cracked open like an egg. Inside, alien machinery that had been used to erase dozens of species was destroyed in seconds. "Sir, I'm reading some kind of data storage system in the wreckage," reported the science officer. "Send in the recovery teams. Dr. Lim wants to study everything we can find." While Cho's team captured Vextar technology, Major Kim Yoonji led a Special Forces mission to the most important target of all. Intelligence had located the primary Vextar erasing facility, built inside a moon in the Gliese 667c system. Kim's team approached the moon in stealth ships, designed to avoid Vextar sensors. They landed on the dark side and used mining equipment to tunnel into the alien base. "Remember, we need to capture their data systems intact," Kim told her squad as they moved through the alien corridors. Every file, every record, everything they have. The base was larger than they expected. The Vextar had carved out huge chambers inside the moon. In the center, Kim found something that made her blood run cold. Thousands of crystal storage devices lined the walls of a vast chamber. Each crystal glowed with different colors, and Kim realized what she was looking at. "Command, this is Kim. I'm in what looks like an archive. There are thousands of storage crystals here." "What kind of storage?" Kim approached one of the crystals and activated her scanner. The device translated the alien symbols into human language. Species designation: Kalari Federation. Cleansing date: 847 years ago. Population erased: 12.7 billion. Quantum recordings preserved for study. Kim felt sick. They're keeping recordings of everyone they've erased. Every species, every person. It's like a museum of genocide. She moved to another crystal. Species designation: Thurian Empire. Cleansing date: 203 years ago. Population erased: 31.2 billion. "Copy all the data you can," ordered the voice from command. "We need evidence of what they've done." While Kim's team worked in the archive, the main battle raged above. Admiral Yang coordinated the attacks across 17 systems from her command ship. The scale of the operation was beyond anything ever attempted. "Admiral, Fleet 7 reports the Vextar are retreating from the Proxima Centauri attack," announced her tactical officer. "Fleet 12 has destroyed the Vextar shipyard at Wolfie, 359. Fleet 3 requests permission to pursue fleeing enemy vessels." Yang studied the tactical display. The Vextar were not used to fighting on this scale. Their ships worked best when they could erase targets one at a time. When faced with thousands of human vessels attacking from multiple directions, their formations broke apart. "All fleets, continue the attack. Don't let them regroup." Fleet Coordinator Song Juwon sat in the logistics center on Earth, managing the supply lines for 500,000 warships. His job was to make sure every ship had fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. It was the most complex operation in human history. "Sir, Fleet Admiral Yang is requesting more kinetic ammunition for the attacking fleets," reported his assistant. "How much more?" "All of it. Every factory output for the next month." Song looked at his supply charts. Yang's fleets were firing weapons faster than Earth could build ammunition. But the asteroid belt mining stations were producing raw materials at maximum speed. "Redirect all production to ammunition and contact the Luna factories. Tell them to start making kinetic rounds instead of ship parts. The human war machine was working at a pace that amazed even its creators. Every factory, every mine, every shipyard worked around the clock. Children too young to fight collected scrap metal. Elderly citizens came out of retirement to work in ammunition plants. Dr. Yu Hai-young studied the psychological profiles of captured Vextar prisoners. As a xenopsychologist, her job was to understand how aliens thought. What she discovered about the Vextar was disturbing. They don't see other species as alive, she reported to President Han. In their minds, they're not committing murder. They're cleaning up a mess. What do you mean? The Vextar have been erasing species for so long that they've lost the ability to understand any solution except deletion. When they see a problem, they erase it. They literally cannot think of alternatives. President Han frowned. So negotiation is impossible? More than impossible. They can't even understand what negotiation means. To them, we're just a virus that needs to be cleaned up. This information reached the front lines where human commanders realized they were fighting an enemy that could not be reasoned with. The Vextar would either erase humanity or be destroyed themselves. There was no middle ground. Captain Jiang Sujin commanded the quantum archaeology unit attached to Admiral Yang's fleet. Her job was to use captured Vextar technology to try reversing the erasing process. If successful, they might be able to bring back some of the erased worlds, ma'am. I think we figured out how their technology works, reported Dr. Lee from the research team. Show me. Dr. Lee activated a holographic display. They don't actually destroy matter. They move it to another dimension, leaving behind a quantum imprint in normal space. That's why the ground turns to glass. It's a side effect of the dimensional transfer. Can we reverse it? Partially. We can't bring back people who were erased. But we can recover their last moments, their final thoughts, even some of their memories. It's like reading a ghost story written in quantum energy. Jiang stared at the display. You mean everyone who was erased is still there in another dimension? Not alive, no. But their information patterns still exist. We could potentially restore their memories, their knowledge, even their personalities as digital constructs. The implications were staggering. Every person the Vextar had erased in 1,000 years might be recoverable as quantum data. Not alive, but not completely gone either. In the Vextar home system, Supreme Erasure Torvex reviewed the battle reports with growing alarm. 17 attacks at once. Over 50 Vextar facilities destroyed or captured. Thousands of their ships eliminated. How many human vessels are involved in these attacks? He asked his intelligence officer. Current estimates exceed 400,000 ships, Supreme Erasure, with more arriving every day. 400,000. The number was incomprehensible. The Vextar had never built more than 10,000 ships in their entire history. They had never needed more. What is the status of our cleansing operations? Suspended, Supreme Erasure. We cannot safely approach human worlds with so many enemy ships in the area. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vextar had been forced to stop their cleansing operations. The viral species was fighting back so effectively that the cleaners could not do their job. Open a communication channel to the human leadership, Torvex ordered. Supreme Erasure, we do not negotiate with viral species. We do now. The message that reached Earth was unlike any previous Vextar communication. For the first time, there was uncertainty in the alien voice. Human leaders, we are prepared to discuss terms for ending hostilities. We did not expect such resistance from a viral species. President Han listened to the message with Admiral Kang and her top advisors. When it ended, the room was silent for a long moment. They want to negotiate, said Admiral Kang. After they erased 3 million of our people, President Han replied. Her voice was cold as space. After they turned 2 of our worlds into glass monuments. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of Geneva sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere among those lights were families who had lost loved ones on New Busan and New Jeju. Send them this message, she said. You erased our children. We will erase your empire. The Vextar had offered to negotiate. But humanity was no longer interested in talking. They were interested in justice. Admiral Yang looked at her tactical display as her fleet regrouped after the 17 simultaneous attacks. The operation had been a complete success. Vextar forces were in retreat across multiple systems, but this was just the beginning. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Yang. Phase 1 is complete. Prepare for Phase 2, Admiral Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship as 500,000 human warships approached the Vextar home system. The largest fleet in galactic history moved through space like a metal storm, ready to deliver justice for New Busan and New Jeju. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Vextar capital," reported his communications officer. "Put it on screen." The alien that appeared was different from the others they had encountered. This one looked older, with strange markings across its pale skin. When it spoke, its voice carried a weight that suggested great age and authority. "I am Supreme Erasure Torvex, leader of the Vextar Dominion. We surrender unconditionally to the human fleet." Lee had not expected this. Throughout the war, the Vextar had fought with determined efficiency. They had never shown fear or doubt. Now their supreme leader was surrendering without a fight. "This is Admiral Lee Taeho of the human fleet. Your surrender is noted, but surrender does not erase what you have done to our people. We understand, Human Admiral. We offer complete access to our records and technology. We will submit to whatever justice your species demands." Lee looked around his bridge. His officers seemed as surprised as he was. After months of preparing for the final battle, the enemy was giving up. "Supreme Erasure, why are you surrendering?" The alien was quiet for a moment. "Because you have shown us something we thought was impossible. You have made erasure meaningless. Your species refuses to be deleted." Captain Jiang Sujin worked frantically in her quantum archaeology lab aboard the research ship Discovery. Using captured Vextar technology, her team was attempting something that had never been done before: reversing an erasure. "Dr. Kim, are you getting readings from the New Busan site?" She called. "Yes, ma'am. The quantum imprints are still there, faint but readable." Jiang watched her screens as data flowed in from the dead world. The Vextar technology was incredibly advanced, but it was not perfect. Every erased person left traces in the quantum structure of space itself. "I'm getting something," announced Dr. Park from the data analysis station. "It's a voice recording. Someone on New Busan managed to send a message just before the erasure began." The voice that came through the speakers was terrified, but determined. "This is Mayor An of New Seoul. If anyone finds this recording, know that we did not surrender. We did not give up. Tell our families we fought until the end." Jiang felt tears in her eyes. Mayor An and everyone else on New Busan was gone forever, but their final message had survived, written in the quantum memory of space itself. "Ma'am, I think we can do more than just recover messages," said Dr. Kim. "The quantum imprints contain personality patterns, memories, even thought processes. We might be able to recreate digital versions of the erased people." "You mean bring them back as artificial intelligences? Not alive in the biological sense, but aware, thinking, remembering their lives and families." The implications were staggering. Every person the Vextar had erased in 1,000 years might be recoverable as a digital consciousness. Not truly alive, but not truly dead either. Director Yoon Jae-wook received Jiang's report while coordinating the occupation of Vextar space. The alien empire was collapsing without a fight. Their entire fleet had surrendered when they realized humanity could not be erased. "Sir, Captain Yang reports success in recovering quantum imprints from New Busan," his aide announced. "What kind of success?" "They can restore the consciousness patterns of erased individuals as digital beings. The technology exists to give them virtual bodies and allow them to communicate with their families." Yoon stared at the report. Resurrection was impossible, but this was something close to it. The people of New Busan could speak to their loved ones again, even if only as digital ghosts. "Authorize the full project. Use every resource we have. I want every erased human brought back in digital form." The project that became known as the Galactic Remembrance Program worked around the clock to restore the consciousness patterns of every person the Vextar had erased. It was delicate work, requiring precise quantum archaeology and massive computer systems to house the digital minds. Ambassador Shin Hee-young stood before the newly formed Galactic Preservation Council. Representatives from 43 species filled the Great Chamber, including the Kethari and other survivors of Vextar cleansing operations. "The Vextar Dominion has been dissolved," she announced. "Their leaders will face trial for genocide before this council. Their technology will be used to restore what they destroyed." The chamber erupted in approval. For many of the species present, this was the first time in centuries they had felt safe from erasure. The human government proposes the establishment of a permanent fleet to prevent future genocides. No species will ever again face the threat of complete erasure. A representative from the Thurian survivors raised a question. What of the Vextar people themselves? Will they be erased in revenge? Shin shook her head. Humanity does not erase species. We protect them. The Vextar will be relocated to a single world where they can live under supervision. They will help restore what they destroyed. This announcement surprised many in the council. They had expected humans to take revenge by erasing the Vextar as the aliens had erased so many others. Former Prime Erasure Velkar stood in the defendant's dock as his trial began. He was one of 47 Vextar leaders charged with genocide. The evidence against them was overwhelming. 1,000 years of records showing species after species being systematically erased. You are charged with the deliberate erasure of 47 species, announced the human judge. How do you plead? Velkar looked up at the gallery filled with survivors and their advocates. Guilty. We did what we believed was necessary to maintain galactic order. And now, do you still believe erasure was necessary? The alien was quiet for a long moment. No. The humans have shown us that problems can be solved without deletion. We were wrong. The trials lasted 6 months. In the end, the Vextar leaders were sentenced to life imprisonment helping restore the species they had erased. It was justice, but not revenge. Admiral Kang He-jin stood in the command center overlooking the massive human fleet that now patrolled galactic space. 500,000 warships, originally built for war, had become the foundation of galactic peace. Admiral, we're receiving reports of a new threat in the Andromeda Galaxy, reported her intelligence officer, a species called the Devourers. They consume entire worlds, Kang smiled grimly. Signal the fleet. It looks like we have work to do. The human fleet that had been built to fight the Vextar was now the galaxy's police force. Any species that threatened others would face the same response that had broken the Vextar dominion. Dr. Lim Sang-min worked in his laboratory, putting the finishing touches on a device that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. The quantum restoration array could reverse erasure, effects and restore erased matter to normal space. The first test is ready, he announced to his team. They had chosen a small section of New Busan for the experiment. If successful, they could restore the entire planet. Not the people. Their consciousness patterns were already being recovered separately. But the cities, the parks, the places where families had built their lives. The device activated with a low hum. On the screen, they watched as a section of glass on New Busan's surface began to change. Buildings materialized from quantum foam. Streets reappeared. A small park with children's playground equipment became solid and real again. It works, whispered Dr. Park. We can bring back their world. President Han Soo-jin stood before the memorial wall in Geneva. On the black stone surface, the names of every person erased by the Vextar were carved in letters of light. Over 2 billion names from 47 species across 1,000 years. But these were no longer just names of the dead. Thanks to the Quantum Restoration Project, many of these beings now existed as digital consciousnesses. They could think, remember, and communicate with their descendants. Not alive in the traditional sense, but not lost forever either. Madam President, said her aide, the digital consciousness of Mayor An from New Busan wishes to speak with you. Han nodded. A holographic figure appeared, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a determined expression. Mayor An, I'm honored to meet you. President Han, I wanted to thank you. When the Vextar erased us, we thought humanity would mourn and move on. Instead, you mourned and moved forward. You brought us back. We brought back what we could. I'm sorry we couldn't save your lives. You saved something more important. You saved our memory, our stories, our legacy. The Vextar wanted to delete us from history. Instead, we've become part of the greatest story ever told, the story of how humanity refused to let genocide succeed. Admiral Lee Tae-ho gave the final address to the assembled human fleet as it took up its new role as the galaxy's protectors. 500,000 ships floated in formation around Earth, ready to defend any species that faced the threat of erasure. 1 year ago, the Vextar erased New Busan, thinking we would accept it and move on. They erased New Jeju thinking we would surrender. They didn't understand that some things cannot be erased. He looked out at the massive fleet that surrounded Earth like a metal constellation. Hope cannot be erased. Justice cannot be erased. The determination to protect the innocent cannot be erased. The Vextar learned this too late. Lee turned to